Okay, so I'm getting the hang of this game, and as someone who has never picked up a Souls game, I'm starting to see the appeal. In this video we did some exploring of the sands between, and took on a handful of new bosses, including this samurai crab running around with chopsticks, this crab who was really into boxing, this dude who had literal plastic utensils tied to his claws, because apparently claws just aren't enough these days. This whole game has been a cycle of death. Sometimes I feel like a god flying through enemies like hot butter through a knife. First thing I did was chat to a few of the crabs around the cereal box. Conch told me how excited the city was, that some crab was finally going claw to claw with Roland. He also said that I should probably get on my way and my first step was the Grove. The others were just excited to be going up against Roland, but really they were relying on us to get anywhere. F actually admired Roland. I'd argue that he was the only other real competitor in this treasure hunt. Speaking to Nema gave us a little background on who Roland actually was. He was the CEO of Shellfish Corp, which was the largest trash scavenging operation around. This meant he had deep pockets. She also told us that he owned most of the buildings in the city and controlled the cost of rent as well. Before we made our way out of the city, we paid our friend Mooney a little visit and unlocked a new skill which later became my favourite skill, Scrap Hammer. When you heavy attacked a shell on the ground, the shell attached to your fork. And oh boy, the damage we could do with this thing was ridiculous. So at the edge of the city there was a bridge that went out into God knows where. At the end of the bridge, Conch and Nema were waiting around. As soon as I approached Nema, she stopped me in my tracks. She basically told me that even though we're rivals, she didn't fancy seeing me get eaten alive. I don't think she realises that I respawn after death. I am literally immortal. Anyway, she says that there's rules to exploring the sands between. Basically, if I don't want to get devoured, I should stick to the arches, because that's where commuters have centered the paths, which basically means that the big nasty crab won't come close to the arches. Simple really. Conch on the other hand didn't really have any survival advice. He just wanted to let us know how little faith he had in us. Thanks mate. He did let us know roughly where things were though. Like to the north was the Enchanted Grove, which is where we were headed. To the east was Flot and Veil, which was basically Roland territory. And to the west, well, he basically said don't go west. So we left his hourglass ass behind and ventured forward into the unknown. Except I knew I had to go north. First thing I wanted to do though is see what all the fuss was about with this dodgy crab. And I found out almost immediately. This guy had plastic cutlery tied to his claws and he looked nuts. So I left him alone and ran back to the arches. Pagurus dipped as soon as I got there. So at least I knew that arches were reliable. Further ahead I found a huge rock I could climb. At the top was one hell of a view, and also a moon shell. At least I was making some progress. Eventually I made it to the expired knoll, which was like the starting point for the grove, I think. In this area I bumped into a familiar face. It was Shitan, the crab from the castle gate, do you remember? Back before the crabs hit the fan. She told us that she was foolish to pledge her sword to a lord that was so easily swayed by greed. She also said that the consequences from the fall of Slacktide were severe. What annihilated Slacktide was an infection of the mind. An infection invited in due to the greed of the Duchess. And whilst others like her still stood, the infection would continue to spread. And that's why Shitan's here. Further ahead we bump into Firth again. This dude is everywhere. He also expressed his lack of faith in us as well, by letting us know that he thought we'd died in the sands between. These crabs are hell bent on making Krill feel really bad about himself. On the flip side, he fills us in on the situation in the grove. Basically it used to be full of friendly country bumpkins, but a few tides ago they started going a bit loopy, foaming from the mouth and that sort of weird stuff, and then ended up killing the other crabs. With that in mind, we ventured forth and immediately met a new enemy. Crabs now had ranged attacks. They had bows and arrows. And there I was thinking this game couldn't possibly make things any harder. The arrows had the power to literally take your shell out in one hit. And they were a pain to dodge too. While I was cluelessly stumbling around the grove, I found this unassuming little clearing with a suspicious amount of shells knocking about. As I was wandering around the clearing, suddenly I was attacked by this diseased lycanthrope. It was a terrifying creature, and its unblockable attack was to literally vacuum you into its mouth, chew you up and then spit you back out again. Its secondary attack was to launch little diseased crabs to distract me. I panicked and tried to run away, but there was an invisible wall holding me in. That was until the lycanthrope smacked me straight through the wall. But the thing was that while I was outside the wall, I realised I actually needed to, fight him. So being on the outside of the wall didn't really do much for me. so I hopped back in and got killed immediately, which is obviously quite normal for me. I decided to give this boss another try. I'd learned that I just needed to be more tactical, take my time, learn its moves, and eventually with a bit of patience and a little bit less button mashing, I'd get there. And I did. I slowly wore down the health of the lycanthrope until finally the killing blow. I picked up the item it dropped, Chum, a stowaway. One that I should have used straight away, but for some reason it just didn't register in my head how useful this stowaway actually was. Through the archway behind where I took out that lycanthrope, I jumped the gap, and as soon as I landed, I got startled by Tortellini. He was hiding in a bush. I think I scared him too. He told us not to talk to him because then the crabs in the area would notice that he's not actually a bush. Smart. We headed into the caves and did a little bit of parkour. On the other side of the caves, we came out back at the surface next to a river and a moon shell. Thank God. Also, Firth was already there. He told us that we're doing a great job and there wasn't much further to go from here. I don't know how he knew that. I left him to dawdle about and battled my way through the path. At the top of the path I met this long-legged crab, and boy, his hits are damaging. He walks around with this stupid hammer with this stupid chewing gum, and he stupid killed me too. I got back up there, grabbed my stuff and then tried to take him on again. But at this point I was getting slightly annoyed again, so I just skipped him. He didn't even give chase, which was great for me. In this new area I bumped into Conch. I don't know what shucking shortcuts these guys are using, because there's no way in hell that this hourglass ass senior citizen is battling his way through all those crowds to get here before me. I start the chat with him and apparently Krill is on smoke. Conch threatens to beat our shell in, but then catches himself. Other than that, he really hasn't got much to say, which seems to be the norm for him. He offers a history lesson which I accept and then immediately check out of. On the other side of a rock there's a bridge, one that I can't get to at the moment, so I guess there must be a way to get around to the other side. A way which included me having to hopscotch across bottles. On the other side we encounter a new enemy. This one was running around with cocktail umbrellas that can block my attacks. And it's shockingly effective, considering they're made of paper and I have a goddamn metal fork. Also check this out, I needed a shell for my hammer. Went to use this one and the game throws me a curveball. Apparently there's other hermit crabs out there. I got smacked into the next ocean. I came back around and completely ignored it this time. I didn't have the patience for that. Further along I start climbing up the tower. Halfway up there's a shortcut to unlock. Hopefully I won't need it. Near the top of the tower we bump into Nema. She was literally stood next to the shortcut. Obviously she got here before me. She didn't fancy making my job a little easier. Huh? Nema? Whose side are you on? Anyway, she starts waffling on about how the crabs I've been wiping out used to actually be normal at some point. She's obviously going through some moral battle in her head. I'll leave her to it. At the top of the tower there were a few crabs that I think I had to fight, but I didn't. I just skipped around them and went down the slide. At first I thought this was a waste of time. I was just down there a moment ago. Why would I go back? But at the bottom I realised that I was on the other side of a bridge. I chopped off the chewing gum that was holding the bridge up and just like that I unlocked a new shortcut. I looped back around to the other side of the rock and used the shell to fast travel back to Mooney. I had enough crystals now to unlock the dispatch move. A really handy move that let me cause crazy damage, but only after I'd knocked an enemy over. Back at the oil drum, I went through another archway and climbed up onto a boat. I wasn't stupid. This screamed boss battle. I contemplated whether I was actually ready for this, and then I went for it. What was the worst that could happen, hey? Well, meet Hekea, the source of my distress for the next hour. This guy's a badass. He's got chopsticks as a weapon, and rock hard abs. This was a tough fight. Naturally I died a handful of times. I even took like 2 breaks in between to get my mind straight. I really hope this game doesn't show stats on how many times each boss has killed me, because it's going to be embarrassingly high. I eventually got the hang of his moves. You had to make sure to avoid his intimidation move by dodging left or right, and the crucial thing was getting him staggered, because as soon as I did that, I could use dispatch on him and smash his health down fast. Once you get his health past the 50% mark, he had a second stage. This is where he splits his chopsticks into 2 and swung them around like even more of a nut job. The main thing was that when he did his swing with one hand, he would immediately swing with the other. So I basically had to block the first and then parry the second to get a good hit in. A few more sneaky hits with my coconut hammer and he was dead. We picked up another stainless relic for beating him, and then I almost walked straight past the damn map piece. Just then, Shitan appeared and complimented our brilliant display of bravery. She then proceeded to tell us that Hikea was just a mere speed bump and that he was nothing compared to the master in the village's sanctum. What's funny is that it never registered in my head that I could just head back to the city at this point. For some reason I thought I had to beat the master, as if it was part of the immediate story. It was a good thing I did though. We couldn't get through the doors at the back of the ship, so we took an alternative path. On the way we had this over-eager crab try and swing for me and completely miss, and then just fall off the edge. Oh well, saves me the effort. We even got the crystals for its death. At this point we had got to the edge of a village. This area was challenging because there was an archer at the top of a ridge, and I swear this dude had goddamn aimbot, because there's no way he should have been landing the shots that he was taking. To make it even more challenging, the village was comprised of milk and juice cartons, and there are a lot of crabs hidden away in the corners of the cartons, which was annoying when you're trying to dodge arrows while fighting crabs. After a few attempts at getting to the top of the hill, I finally made it and opened up the shortcut that went back to the boat where we beat Hikea. This meant that I didn't have to battle through the village for the 100th time, which is good because my patience was dwindling. I took this moment to head back to Mooney and unlocked spearfishing, which let me spear enemies, reel them in and damage their balance. Continuing my battle through the village, I stumbled across this cave with two long boys standing guard. Now I wasn't in the mood to take them both on at once, so I did the next best thing. I skated around them and just grabbed whatever items they were guarding, which was another stainless relic and a wad of gum. Out of the cave I battled my way through the cliffs until I ran into Shitan again. She said that she could sense the master's powers ahead. We questioned if the master even existed, to which Shitan responded, probably. We pushed forward and found a clearing with a sprinkle of crab husks. This was a sign. I could sniff another boss battle ahead, and I was right.
Why do you sad, polluted crabs keep coming to this place? I thought I made it clear. There's nothing for you here. Has your sense of self-preservation rotted away, even? Or perhaps you truly wish for death? Well, I'll gladly oblige you, my friend.
Immediately you could see how quick he was. After spending some time learning his moves, I figured him out. He had this unblockable move, where he would hide in the bushes and then cause a whirlwind to confuse you, and you literally had to listen to the sound of him attacking so you could know when to dodge. Also, he had a mental right hook. Staggering him was the only way to go. There were plenty of opportunities to parry his attacks too. Just like Hikea, some attacks had two parts, and you had to make sure to only block the first part and then parry the second part. But eventually, I took him down. However, instead of dying, he stopped fighting us.
Seems like I'm still out of practice. All skills fade with time, I suppose. I truly thought I would perish in a cooler way, though. Fighting at least 10 or 12 guys. Well, you've earned it, petite crab. Come and put my tortured soul to rest.
I'm not trying to kill you.
Oh.
We had a chat with him where he apologised for trying to fight us and offered to teach us some umami stuff. Basically, we can now upgrade our adaptations with him. Lastly, before we wrapped up our conversation, he offered to teach us his secret technique, which was a new adaptation, the Mantis Punch. Basically, he taught us how to swing that right hook just like him. With that, we returned to the city, stopped off at the blacksmith to level up our fork, nipped in to see our favourite moon snail, and unlocked the aggravation skill, which increased our damage on the next attack whenever our shell took a hit. And then we hit the centre of town. Conch had once again beaten us here, but we had the first map piece. Conch stuck it up on the cereal box, and just like that we had our next location. This one was Flot and Veil, Roland's company town. We fast travelled to the central vista, jumped down and reached the arch that led to the Veil. But there was a crab there that basically told us that the scented trails are gone beyond this point, which meant that we had to move fast and make sure that we don't get munched by that dodgy Pagurus. Luckily we made it in one piece. This place looked awful. Trash and oil everywhere. On our way into the town we got ambushed. Like literally no warning. Inkerton jumped us. We held our own in this fight. I got him down to almost half health before he gave up. He was muttering something about it not being worth his time. I think he was just shook up from the ass whooping we just handed him. Beyond the valley, we got our first look at Flot and Veil, a cesspool of oil and junk. Seriously, this place looked awful. Once again, Conch had made it here before us. He didn't even have anything meaningful to say. Same with Nema, who managed to beat us here too. We proceeded to traverse this dodgy looking area and somehow ended up in some sort of old western strip with a new enemy. There's gunslinging shrimps now? I don't know. What I did know was that they were easy to take out because when they shot their little bullets at us, we could deflect them straight back. On one of the little islands we bumped into our old mate, Chitan. She didn't really have anything insightful to say this time, so I left her to chill out and do whatever she does best. We unlocked a new shortcut and then made our way through the little cave to the other side. Here there were just some more generic enemies, and a little bit of hopscotch to keep us on our toes. We even ran into another shell splitter, although this one proved to be way less troublesome. Also, you can fall through these gaps in the flooring and it's really annoying. We ventured deeper into the Veil and bumped into Firth again. Despite seeing the horrible conditions in the company town, Firth continued to defend Roland until we reminded him that Roland was between him and the treasure. We left him to his own devices and found this little cave area. Now the trippy thing about this section was that we were above water, which took some adjusting because I couldn't just jump and hold to swim. Whenever we did that, we just dropped like a rock. Eventually we find this little pool where we had to jump in. At the last minute I spotted something that looked fishy. I could smell another boss fight. Regardless, I jumped straight in because where else was I gonna go? And that, kids, is how we met the Ceviche sisters. This fight wasn't difficult. The most challenging part was trying to keep track of both of them at once because there were two sets of attacks coming at us. My tactic was to focus on one at a time because the quicker I took out one of them, the easier it would be to handle the second one. And it was just that simple. As soon as the first one was dead, the second one became super simple to finish off. With that, we had another dead boss under our belt and we had a new adaptation, the bubble bullet, which let us fire off damaging bubbles just like a gun. We headed out into the open again and it was the home stretch to the map piece. Remember when I said that you could fall through the gaps on the walkways earlier? Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. We made our way back up to the top again and claimed our prize, the second map piece. But before we headed back to the city, I spotted another side boss, so I thought I'd give him a try. This was Scuttling Sludge Steamroller. He literally had a paint roller that he could run you down with, and it painted that poisonous gunk on the floor too. He wasn't too challenging, especially when you got him staggered and used dispatch on him a couple times. That's really all it took, to be honest with you. My prize for beating him was a zooplankton. A bit underwhelming, but let's be honest, this game wasn't one to give you a little cuddle. Before we headed back to the city, I stopped off at our favourite mate's place, Mooney. We unlocked 3 new skills this time. The first was self-repair, the second was elusive prey, and the third was skedaddle. Back in the city, we slot our second map piece into the box. This showed us that we had to take on Pagurus. I think this was inevitable. I knew we would eventually have to throw claws with this guy. I fast travelled back over to the sands between and headed into the sands to tempt our mate out. But while I was running around, I found a new stowaway, Frederick. So I swapped Chump out for Freddy and then continued to look for our crab mate again. Pags put up a good fight. He was fast, savage, intimidating, dead. We grabbed a map piece. Also, either I was getting better at the game or the bosses were getting easier. And why would the bosses be getting easier? So it must be me. That was the quickest we'd gotten a map piece. And that was the final one too. Back in the city we placed the final piece in and this completed the map. Turns out the treasure lay just off the coast of Flot and Veil. Before we could make any plan on how to get it though, Roland appeared from above, riding in on a crane. Why? Because my dude stole the entire box, map and all. Not that it made much difference. We needed to head to the docks at Flot and Veil, and considering how many times these NPCs had beat me to locations, I had no doubt that I would be the last crab to arrive, as per usual. And I was right. I fast travelled to the docks and Nema was already here. She'd located a boat to use and even pointed out that Roland was out hunting in his barge. Also, the boat she had found wasn't even charged. Somehow that was a me problem. So I headed into the power station to see if we could find some sparky spark for the boaty boat. Navigating this place required some puzzle solving, and a higher IQ than I was blessed with. First we had to find a fuse to get the front door open, and then later inside I spent way too long trying to figure out what this stupid magnet did. Turns out you just had to hold block underneath it. So I spent some time doing a few crazy jumps, riding some magnets around, plugging in fuses and stuff like that. We even bumped into Firth again, who was still in denial about Roland. Eventually we made our way to the top of a building. This was where the rest of Roland's staff had shelled up, trying to survive and ride out the apocalypse. It was also a safe spot for us because we found a moon shell for us to travel with. I said hi to Firth, listened to his dialogue. Dude was still in denial. Beneath this safe spot was another magnet for us to ride. This took us to yet another building where we met one of those long leg dudes, but this time around my guy had an electric hammer. Looks like they'd upgraded from chewing gum to electric. Well done to them. At the top of the building we had a spinning crane with a magnet on it. Same concept though, ride the magnet, find the fuse, plug it in. This time around however, the fuse activated a crane, which moved the walkway into position. And now we could get over to the next building. When we get to this building we find a hole in the ground, and my boss senses were tingling. Oh, and look who else made it, Firth. We asked him if he was coming in with us, but the coward he was, he said no. He said we should have the honours. Firth, I swear to God, you're useless. On the bright side, he'd finally come to his senses about Roland, but his solution was to get rich and then donate money. Whatever makes him feel better, I guess. Anyway, let's dive in. Our next boss was Volti.
The world these days is dark and mean. Even the water tastes unclean. And even those you love and trust would rip your limbs off if they must. Like Mr. R, the one in charge, who scrapped our homes to build his barge. But don't be gloomy, glum, or sad, 'cause down in here, it's not so bad. Save crying for another day. Forget it all. Come on, let's play!
Volti was a surprisingly easy boss, mainly because she was slow, but also she was the first boss where we were chasing her around the arena. Usually the boss is chasing us. She had 4 simple attacks. The first was a hairdryer which shot electric orbs. The second was a toaster which shot out 2 slices of bread, which you could use as stairs to smack her. The third was a wireless receiver which expelled waves of electricity. She would do single and double waves, all we had to do was jump over them. The fourth was a massager, which she would hit you with if you stood still too long. The annoying part was literally just getting close enough to actually hit her. You basically had to be stood on a little island in front of wherever she popped out. That was her first phase. Second phase wasn't too different. The room just got flooded with a gunk that you had to avoid. But still, the same attacks. It was a bit more challenging to get to Volti, but all the same, it didn't take too long to beat her. Doing so unlocked a new adaptation. This one was called E-Electrocute, get it? Because she's an eel. Anyway, I think we could use this to charge up the boat. We made our way back out of the room, which spat us back out to the front of the factory. Back at the boat, we charged that bad boy up. Just then, Shitan appeared. She was going to join us on the boat. She wasn't after the treasure, so I thought, fair enough. And then the rest of the goddamn backpackers turned up, and all of them were like, we're coming too, as if they made a shred of contribution to this treasure hunt. On the boat, these lot decided to start discussing what they would do with the treasure once they found it. They all eventually came to agreement that whoever finds it will split it with the rest of them. Us on the other hand, we weren't splitting it. We needed all the treasure if we had any chance of getting our shell back. The rest of the guys weren't too impressed with my response though. But man, I didn't even want to be here. Surprisingly, Firth came in to defend us, which caused another civil war. This was going to be a long boat ride. We'd finally arrived at the mouth of the drain. This pinball machine was Roland's barge, and it looks like he had already started extracting the treasure. There wasn't a lot to do here, but I could feel another boss battle coming. The path to the battle involved a lot of precision jumping, which I was bad at, and avoiding high pressure streams of water, which I was bad at. Eventually we reached this ledge, climbed up the side and started a new cutscene.
Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. No one even showed up to stop us.
I don't like it. Something smells about all this. Roland knew we were gonna show up, so where's all the resistance? It all really stinks of...
A trap? Right you are, bottom feeder. See, us civilized folk have rules. As much as I dislike your little mottled crew, it wouldn't be gentlemanlike to have you disposed of without a good reason. But all y'all have just stepped onto my private property without permission. And where I come from, that's a crime called trespassing. I presume you know what we do to trespassers at Shellfish Corp. Inkerton, kill the city folk.
Gladly.
And as for you...
Now it was time to go claw to claw with Roland, and to be honest, he wasn't that difficult to fight. Considering that he was the final boss, it was kinda suspicious. It took me a few tries to nail down his moves. He had this sneaky habit of faking some moves, but on the other hand, he telegraphed his moves so badly that I could read them like a book. So as soon as I figured out each move, it was over for him. He had a little hook move for his unblockable, and that was easy to avoid too, just jump backwards. And he did a little spinny move around the arena, but if he hit the right spot, he'd just fall over. It was also really easy to stagger him, which means that my dispatch move came in real clutch.
Remarkable work, vagabond. The barge is ours. All that remains is to...
What the shell was that?
Stupid little bottom feeders. Don't let any of these trespassers leave, boys.
Oh, son.
Y'all just don't know when to quit, do you? You could have all stayed in your cozy little homes in the reef, watched a shellfish corp dug up this treasure, and waited for that newfound wealth to benefit everyone in town. But y'all just had to get greedy. You decided you deserved this treasure more than the fine people of New Carcinia. And I would be remiss as a local business leader if I didn't punish y'all for this little indiscretion. I dare say that not a single one of y'all...
Shut up! I've been working my butt off trying to get my old life back! I'm pretty sure I've been working harder than anyone else! And now all of a sudden, I'm the jerk for wanting the treasure I earned? And you don't have to do anything at all! You just sit around and stuff just happens for you! It's not fair! It's all a bunch of bullshit! I'm sick of it! I'm gonna get that
Krill, wait!
treasure!
Hold on to something, y'all!
This here feels like the perfect cliffhanger, so that's where we'll leave this. I think I made some crazy progress. If you enjoyed this next part of the story, give the video a thumbs up, and if you're looking forward to the next part, then give this channel a sub. Until next time, see ya!